My topic is a newer testament of the continuing creation since the year 1000 in our common era. Time makes ancient good uncouth. They must upward still and onward, who would keep abreast of truth. The Old Testament was written from about 1500 years before the Common Era up until the time of Jesus' birth, and then the New Testament was written from about from Jesus' birth, and it was pretty well completed by, as you can see, about the year 100. So it's been that's a total of 1600 years, and it's been 1900 years since the Bible was completed in the year 100. So let's add a newer testament of the 100-year increase in knowledge, wisdom, and truth to the New Testament. Particularly in that last century, we've have a scientifically verified cosmology, a history of when the universe started. And that'll be the first part of my talk. And then and further on, I'll be talking about new poetry, hymns, literature, and theology. So let's talk first about here's the Old Testament flat Earth cosmology 2,500 years ago. First chapter of Genesis says, "In the beginning, God created." That's still up to date and part of our modern cosmology. However, Genesis 1 through 7, 1 chapter 7 needs to be updated. You can see in this picture, God made the firmament and separated the waters which are under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament. And if you look closely here, you can see these floodgates. And my guess is that that's how they explain rain. They hadn't understood the water cycle. And you can see the flat Earth is connected to the waters below the Earth. One of the problems of these columns of Earth, what were the columns of Earth standing on? Some people thought it was maybe a back of a turtle, but then there would have had to be turtles all the way down. So let's compare, just to illustrate the progress we've made in the last 2,500 years. This is the picture that our astronauts took of Earthrise from the moon, our beautiful blue Earth. This is a newer testament view of the world that enabled us to land an astronaut on the moon in 1969. How we got to land a man on the moon? Well, back in 1510, Copernicus, the astronomer, made a controversial proposal for his day. The sun, not the Earth, was the center of our solar system. It took quite a while for that to catch on, but if he had made this point, he might have made the point that living on Earth is expensive, but it does include a free trip around the sun. And I'm happy to say that, and when I saw this, to enjoy the fact that both Ginny and I have each had 85 free trips around the sun. Here's Ginny, the same age as me. Well, she will be in a few days. She's catching up with me in age with her birthday.
Now, Paul, that's a secret. Stop it.
Well, anyway, we've all had a free trip around the sun, and that's why more reason to believe that the sun is the center of our solar system. However, our sun is not the center of our Milky Way galaxy, as you can see from this arrow here. The astronomer Harley Shapley discovered our place in the Milky Way in 1920. And here's his photograph. And we are not the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Well, back in 1927, Father Georges Lemaitre, I'm going too fast here. Father Georges Lemaitre, a Roman Catholic priest in Belgium and a physicist, and he took Hubble's research and postulated that the universe was expanding from a fixed point in space-time, as shown here, this singularity of this cosmic explosion. And he was inspired perhaps by the first chapter of Genesis, that there was a beginning. By the way, when he first proposed this, some people rejected it because they thought it was too much like the Bible. But he was also inspired by Hubble's discovery of the expanding universe and Einstein's general relativity theory. And he published his hot Big Bang theory in 1927. Well, over the years, we have lots of evidence that this is indeed how it happened. So here's the big picture. It all started 13.8 billion years ago at the beginning, a hot Big Bang. I call it hot to cool cosmology. It started with a very hot, maybe billions of degrees, but you can see the cooling, the color coding is that it cooled. And it cooled to the point where we started to have first atoms formed. The simplest atom was hydrogen, and that's most of the atoms in the universe are still hydrogen, just a single proton, electron. Well, the universe and the radiation, this hot radiation kept expanding and escaping, and here we are over here, and we've actually measured its temperature. It's sort of like noise. I mean, it has lots of frequencies, and you may have heard it. It's sort of like the noise you might hear when you're tuning between your TV stations or your FM station. You may have actually heard that cosmic. It has a spectrum, and we've analyzed it, and it has a very cool temperature of 4 degrees above the absolute of zero. That's minus 200 degrees, 207 degrees C. So this is indeed very cool cosmology. But I call it the whispering cosmos for that sort of a more pleasant metaphor for this fossil radiation that escaped about 300,000 or 3/10 million years after the beginning. So I'm going to show you a plot of this radiation. We've measured it in detail, the various temperatures, and then and I'll also show you a Hubble photograph of the galaxies that formed. Basically, as the hydrogen expanded, there were some non-uniformities. The non-uniformities were amplified by gravity, and I can actually show you now right here. This is a Hubble telescope optical deep field image of the galaxies 2 billion years after the beginning. In other words, they're 12 billion light years away. For the light from all these various galaxies to reach our Earth. This was first photographed in 1996. And here's a sort of a computer plot of that microwave radiation that I was telling you about. And it has non-uniformities. The color coding, the red areas are the hottest and the bluest are the coldest. There's some non-uniformity, and that non-uniformity got amplified and made the clustering of the galaxies. But anyway, this is an image of the universe 3/10 million years after the beginning. There was no matter. It was all radiation, varying temperature, and as measured, and the cooler regions seeded the stars and the galaxies. Well, here's a description of it by the cosmologist Brian Schwimm. The universe gives birth to itself by assembling communities with the capacity to awaken the creativity of their members. When hydrogen atoms find themselves in an interaction community called a star, they discover they have the power to transform themselves into the elements that give birth to life. And I'll show you how this happened. Basically, here's a star, and this is what our sun is. This is what's going on our sun. The hydrogen, which is basically protons shown here, combine, and they form helium, which has 2 protons and 2 neutrons, and give off lots of energy. And that's the energy and light that makes life on Earth possible. Well, that fusion of hydrogen into helium doesn't stop. It continues and gives us all the elements in the periodic table: carbon, neon, oxygen, silicon, iron. And then at the end of their lifetime, stars explode in these spectacular supernovae. And this cosmic dust containing all the elements spreads out into space. And then when it comes back together, new stars and new planets are formed. And here's the picture, again, a Hubble telescope photograph of this cosmic dust from a supernova. You can see the dust, and you can see the gravity starting to pull stars together. You can see that the stars being formed as shown here. Hubble telescope of new stars being born from the gravitational attraction of the dust from the death of the star that exploded in a supernova. Well, this is summarized, this whole story, in a recent book published by Professor Peebles. He was the 2020 Nobel laureate for his development of the basic theory, the inside history of our modern understanding of the universe. And that is what our newer testament should be all about. And so we went basically from Einstein, and let me just show you, Einstein and Lemaitre in the 1920s. And a century later, we have Professor Peebles getting a Nobel Prize for his theoretical work, expanding upon basically George Lemaitre's original proposal. So I've talked to you about the first part of my talk, new science, cosmology century. Now I'm going to talk about new poetry, psalms that would be my candidate for a newer testament, hymns that have been written in the last 1900 years, and literature and theology. It's just a sampling. So here's an example I think that would be relevant for the newer testament. The old order changes, yielding place to new. God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. The Newer Testament might also include the hymn and writing of "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," which we just sang. This was written by the first Protestant reformer, Martin Luther, and also evangelists like John Wesley. And well, it should also include the writings of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism. By the way, my father was a Methodist minister, and he wrote this following: "Do all the good you can, and by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, for as long as ever you can." So now he had a brother, Charles, who wrote "A Charge to Keep I Have." And I'm going to stop my screen share, and I'm going to hand it over to my daughter, Emily, and her daughter, Karin, my granddaughter. And Karin will play on the French horn, and then Emily will be singing for us. So do unmute yourselves.
Oh, we're not
Yes,
muted.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're unmuted.
We're not muted. Can you hear us?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Here we
yeah.
go. So this is "A Charge to Keep I Have" by Charles Wesley.
Thank you. So let me continue now with another Newer Testament candidate, the thought of the UU minister and philosopher, Ralph Waldo Emerson. "Over me soared the eternal sky, up full of light and of deity. Again I saw, again I heard the rolling river, the morning bird. Beauty through my senses stole, I yielded myself to the perfect whole." And you get a lot more feeling for Emerson's perfect whole in this inscription from his gravestone in the Concord, Mass cemetery. "Passive master lent his hand to the vast soul that over him planned." Well, here is a book by F. Forrester Church, who was the pastor of the Unitarian Church in New York City. The Essential Tillich is the anthology of the writings of the theologian Paul Tillich. For Tillich, the heart of the Christian message is the new being, the new creation. It came through Jesus the Christ. We measure time from his birth 21 years ago. Christianity for him is more than a religion. It is the message of a new creation, evident in the threefold reconciliation, reunion, and resurrection. Reunion and resurrection are certainly, and they're all very relevant for our present days of political polarization. Resurrection for Tillich is more universal than the revival of dead bodies. Tillich states, it is the victory of the new state of things, the new being born out of the death of the old. Resurrection is not an event that might happen in some remote future, but is the power of the new being to create life out of the death, here and now, today and tomorrow. Where there is new being and creation, there's resurrection, namely the creation of eternity out of each moment of time. Tillich, by the way, eternity for Tillich, by the way, was not endless time, but a dimension of existence, of reality above time that enables us to perceive of events occurring in temporal sequence. So he said, the creation of eternity out of every moment of time. The new being has the old being as the mark of disintegration and death. Resurrection happens now. It happens in us, around us, in soul and history, in nature and the universe. And we can see it happening in the universe. We see it every day. Remember the word human derives from humus, the fertile soil that comes from the composting of plants that have died. The birth of the new from the old, new from the death of the old is cosmic. Stars die in cosmic explosions called supernovae and spread dust containing all the elements into space. Gravity thus pulls the dust back together to form new stars and planets. This is how our solar system was created. The Hubble telescope is enabled to see this happening. And here we see how we are made of stardust. We're made of stardust. The Hubble telescope of new stars being born from gravitational attraction from the dust of the death of the star that had exploded in a supernovae. The Roman Catholic process theologian John Hott at Georgetown University in his recent book cited Emerson. Hott's recent book is The New Cosmic Story Inside Our Awakening Universe. He starts about talking about the outer scientific story, and I've just told you the outer scientific story tells us that the universe is still awakening to rightness. The expansion is not stopped, and human creativity is still going forward. The universe in which we are utterly dependent nevertheless created us. We are made of stardust. We find our greatest inner fulfillment and joy when we contribute to something new and indispensable toward increased goodness, beauty, and truth. The universe is still awakening, and we are called to participate as co-creators in the continuing creation. So in summary, I'm proposing a newer testament of the increasing truth, knowledge, science in the last 1900 years, which has never been really codified in a single book that we might call holy or sacred. As co-creators, let's add a newer testament of the 1900-year increase in knowledge, wisdom, truth to the present New Testament, which is added to the Old Testament. What might your suggestions to include? Maybe when we share during the coffee hour, maybe I would be interested in your input. Maybe what would be some of your favorite poetry? I know Mary Oliver is quite a popular and profound poet. And of course, we heard was it Amanda Gorman, the 22-year-old poet? and then hymns, literature, and theology. So you can, the easiest way is just to remember my initial, Paul H. Carr, just Google my name. You can find my web page and email me. So time makes ancient good uncouth. Let's be upward still and onward to keep abreast of truth. So now we're going to conclude with Karin and Emily singing A Little Light of Mine.